Hello, everyone. I am Doron Spielman. This is the daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokespersons Office. We are live on social media platforms Instagram, X, and YouTube. Wherever you are watching, you can submit questions into the live chat. Starting today, these daily briefings are now available shortly after broadcast as podcast episodes. Search for the Israeli Citizen Spokespersons Office on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all major podcast platforms. Find a link across our social media. I'd like to predict the future. Imagine that Hezbollah, Iran's proxy army in Lebanon, continues its war against Israel, which it started on October 8th. Imagine it continues to launch thousands of missiles, suicide drones at Israelis, preventing 60,000 displaced Israelis from returning safely to their own homes. Imagine after months of warning, Hezbollah to back off. Israel is finally forced to push it away. Soon after, there will be headlines screaming, Israel bombs Beirut airport. The UN will claim an indiscriminate attack by Israel. International organizations will blame Israel for collective punishment of innocent civilians in Lebanon. How do I know? This isn't some top secret intelligence leak. Everyone in Lebanon plainly sees that Iran's terror army, Hezbollah, has for years been embedding itself in civilian infrastructure, even in Beirut's international airport. Beirut's people are still traumatized by the devastating massive explosion at Beirut seaport, whose investigation Hezbollah blocked. Yesterday, the UK Telegraph ran a bombshell expose. Hezbollah is storing huge quantities of Iranian weapons, including missiles and explosives, in Beirut's main civilian airport. Whistleblowers reported unmarked containers arriving in Beirut airport from Iran and being shepherded through customs by senior Hezbollah officials. Boxes containing unguided artillery rockets, short-range missiles, and even ballistic missiles. Lebanon's transport minister, appointed by Hezbollah, of course, tried to debunk the report with a tour for media and diplomats. But get this, they were stopped from actually entering into the cargo terminal. Where is the UN when you need it? Hezbollah is committing war crimes and endangering Lebanese civilians. And that's not a surprise, because just last week, Hezbollah warlord Hassan Nasrallah threatened to commit war crimes and fight without rules. If he says it, maybe we should believe him. Anyone who cares about innocent Lebanese lives, as we all should, needs to speak up and act now. Do you know who cares about the Lebanese people? The Lebanese people themselves. Over the last week, brave Lebanese have been campaigning online against Hezbollah's war behind the Arabic hashtag Lebanon doesn't want war. It's been used over 100,000 times and reached millions of people around the world. Lebanese people have called to disarm Hezbollah and implement 1701, the UN Security Council resolution that ended the 2006 war and was meant to remove Hezbollah from control in southern Lebanon. In a Lebanon controlled by Hezbollah, not following the party line can mean danger for these brave Lebanese people and their families. But many Lebanese people know that silence is dangerous too. In this war in Israel, Hezbollah has no problem sacrificing innocent civilians in both Lebanon and Israel to serve Iran, their patron's goals. The world must stand with the Lebanese people and demand that Hezbollah back off and stop its war in Israel. Lebanon and Israel should be at peace. And without meddling from Iran's terror army, they could again be at peace. Hezbollah believes they can continue firing rockets at homes in Israel with impunity. And why shouldn't they believe this? For the last 8 months, Hezbollah, Iran's proxy army in Lebanon, has been taking notes from Hamas, Iran's proxy army in Gaza, on how to manipulate the UN, the international community, and the media. Hezbollah has seen Hamas operate from hospitals, from schools, and from mosques, and simply get away with it. Because when Hamas fought out of the basement of a hospital, UN officials didn't attack Hamas. They attacked Israel and told Hamas it has immunity. When Hamas stored rockets in schools, the UN attacks Israel. Hezbollah has been watching the news just like you and I have. They've seen that even in the face of the clearest evidence, there are many who will almost never call out Hamas for its endangering of Gazan civilians. And they've seen that for some, there's no accusation of alleged Israeli cruelty, no terrorist propaganda that they won't report as fact, no matter how absurd. We should expect that as long as that works, as long as Hamas is rewarded, even incentivized to hide behind civilians, that Hezbollah will continue embracing the same playbook in its war on Israel. As long as Hezbollah can explicitly say it will attack Israel with no rules, as long as it can threaten EU members like Cyprus with impunity, as long as it can hide behind Lebanon's civilians, Hezbollah will hide behind Lebanon's civilians and attack Israel, knowing that the UN and the international media will cover for it and place the blame on Israel. Demand that your leaders stop Hezbollah and its war on Israel now, before we, Israel, are forced to end the war ourselves. Our office and our spokespersons will continue to share analyses about these issues on social media. Now let's take some questions from our audience watching live on social media.
First question coming to us from Sophie Barnett via our YouTube live feed. Would a full-blown war with Hezbollah look different than our war with Hamas? And if so, how?
We have to understand that Hamas is a terrorist organization that launched a brutal massacre against Israel. However, Hezbollah is the jewel in the crown of Iran. They are 5 times the size of Hamas. They have received billions and billions of dollars from Iran. They have been compiling weapons, short-range weapons, long-range weapons, precision-guided missiles that can hit a bag of tea that a person is holding over their teacup. This is Hezbollah. They have trained fighters who practiced around the world, practicing again and again and again an attack on Israel. Fighting Hezbollah is on the level of fighting any army for any other army in the world. They have been preparing for terror, and they are the world's #1 terror army. In fact, they have committed more terror attacks against other countries around the world, not only Israel, than any other terror organization. That is Hezbollah. Therefore, a war with Hezbollah is a very difficult war. It's a war that Israel will win, but it is a war that Israel never wanted in the first place. It was Hezbollah that went completely against 1701, which was an agreed upon agreement with the United Nations that would push Hezbollah away from Israel's border over the Litani River. It was Hezbollah that came over that border. It was Hezbollah that, in violation of that agreement, infiltrated into southern Lebanon, brought weapons into southern Lebanon, endangered Lebanese civilians, and launched an attack on Israel on October 8th. So while Hezbollah is a difficult army and are responsible for this entire war, at the end of the day, if it needs to be fought, Israel will be victorious.
Next question comes from David Tawil on Instagram Live. Score 0 to 100% the likelihood of a full war between Hezbollah and Israel in the coming months.
Thank you for your question. I would ask anyone out there, if there was a terrorist, God forbid, outside your house that was shooting at your house, what would be the likelihood that you would defend your family? That is it. That's the whole scenario. Hezbollah began this by shooting rockets at Israeli civilians. These people, these mothers and fathers, they had to take their children and leave their homes. If our people cannot go back to their homes, if we have to defend ourselves from a terrorist that is attacking us, just like any other person in the world, we will do so, which is why we are calling on the international community and on you right now to take note. Israel does not want to go to war. Hezbollah have to live up to the 1701 agreement and move beyond the Litani River. But if they don't, Israel will do whatever it takes, just like any other country or any other person would, to defend their own homes.
Next question comes from Elena Zonana via YouTube. My question is, how is Israel going to defend itself on so many fronts? Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Houthis, and West Bank.
It's a very good question. In fact, we see that Iran has proxies, as you mentioned, in all of these areas. Israel is being attacked on 7 different fronts. I don't think since World War II have we seen this type of mobilization of enemies in a single country. Israel, which is the side of New Jersey, a country of 10 million people, is being attacked by massive forces of countries that have tens of millions of people, even hundreds of millions of people. However, Israel, a democratic country, a peace-loving country, also knows that we have to be able to defend ourselves. We have a fantastic army. an excellent Air Force. We are prepared, we have intelligence, and we have a population that has unified together into a single family that knows that we have nowhere else to go. Therefore, Israel will defend ourselves in our land, we will protect our citizens, and we also call upon the international community, the United States, which has led the quest to help Israel defend itself from these enemies, and other countries around the world, to stand against Hezbollah, to stand against Iran. You have a terror army in the world that is like the Nazi regime before 1939. We can see them getting closer and closer with their goals of terrorizing the world. Israel's the only the first country on their path towards the West. Take a stand now for what is correct. Let's stop Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and all the other Iranian proxies in their path before they can reach other targets in the West or other places around the world. I want to thank you for all of your questions. Thank you for joining us. Please continue to tune in to the Israel Citizen Spokespersons Unit. You can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube. We're here every day, 3 p.m. Israel time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We look forward to your joining us again.